I finally got the missing linear rail. Time for an honest review of the Prusa Core 1 kit. This video isn't sponsored or affiliated with Prusa, so expect the truth and nothing but the truth. Number 1. I'm disappointed that a part like the linear rail was missing from my Prusa Core 1 kit. Here's the thing though, it's hard to prove that a part was actually missing. In my case, I have everything on camera, but I have a feeling most Prusa customers don't film their unboxing. I was honestly worried about contacting the support, but kudos to the support team. When I reached out, they sent me the missing part without hesitation. I really hope it's the correct part. Let's see. One frustrating part of the assembly was that you need to read the descriptions carefully. It's not enough to just look at the pictures, but it's exhausting to constantly switch between reading this tiny text, looking at pictures, and assembling. Would it be possible to completely remove the text and make the images clearer? Maybe for most of the build at least? And then add some warning signs with bigger text when required? Or is it just me? I also have to say, Prusa, please reduce the number of different screws by 80% at minimum. I spent so much time looking for the right screws. After hours of work with minor problems, the printer was finally assembled. It took way longer than I thought, around 14 hours. Sure, it takes longer when you're making a video about it, but this thing just takes a lot of time to assemble. But I have to say, this thing looks dope. I really like its design. What can I say? I have a weakness for good design. The only problem, it refused to print. When you first turn on the printer, the system runs through a self-check and calibration. Unfortunately, the Y-axis calibration failed. And it turns out I'm not the only one experiencing this problem. There are multiple causes reported online. The first one is belt tension. You can use the Prusa app on your phone to tune the audio frequency, basically playing the printer like a guitar. It's a nice idea, but the app needs improvement. I ended up using the online version on my MacBook with my lavalier microphone. So I tuned my belts to exactly 85 Hz and the calibration still failed. Another problem reported by fellow kit builders is the linear rail assembly. The linear rail assembly is a crucial component, quite literally the core of the core. It slides along these two Y-axis rods and must be perfectly aligned at 90 degrees to the rods. This angle though depends on this stamped part here, which isn't stiff at all. The overall design doesn't appear very sturdy, and I assume any angular deviation will be transferred directly to your printed parts. The worst part is the suggested solution to this problem. I have to admit this makes me feel uneasy, but yeah, it worked and I was able to perfectly align the linear rail assembly. So I calibrated again and it failed. At this point I spent hours debugging this problem when I finally reached out to the support. I told them about my issue and they suggested fixing the belt tension and the linear rail assembly angle, and that they were working on a software fix, but they didn't communicate how long this fix would take. For a few days I basically gave up on the printer. I'd already spent 20 hours in addition to the 1000 euros that the kit cost me, so I was honestly fed up with it and focused on other stuff, like my Power over Ethernet smart home sensor project. If you're interested in Power over Ethernet and smart home, please check out my playlist. Alright, back to the printer. A few days went by and the printer was just sitting on my desk, taking up space. Around the time when I noticed a thin layer of dust on the machine, I finally saw a forum post mentioning the pulleys. You see, I don't exactly remember what time it was when I mounted the pulleys, but I think I was already half asleep. The first pulley needs to be mounted like this, and the second one needs to be mounted like this. I correctly inserted the spacer in between, but I didn't notice that I also need to mount the second one the other way around. I fixed the issue and it worked. The wire calibration finally succeeded and I was ready to continue. When the printer first moved the Z-axis, I noticed unpleasant sounds, but it was an easy fix. I simply loosened the screws a little and tightened them again. The printer comes with pre-sliced models and I immediately printed the Banshee. It only took 15 minutes or so and the quality is really great. I also printed some other test prints. I'm amazed by the overhangs. 70 degrees is no problem. Even 80 degrees work, but the quality suffers a little. I also printed a sheep head to fix a broken one and a dumb phone. Turns out scrolling on plastic is pretty boring. I don't consider myself a 3D printing expert by any means, so please watch other videos if you're interested in the details about printing quality. For example, this printer seems to have relatively prominent ringing or ghosting. This is basically when you see a wave pattern on the surface of your prints. You can buy an accelerometer to improve the input shaper settings for about 20 euros. So maybe I'll get one. But so far I don't care too much about barely visible wave patterns. Maybe that's just me. So should you buy this printer? I think it's a good printer once you get it working. If I could go back in time, I'd probably buy the assembled version instead of the kit. As much as I enjoy tinkering, it wasn't enjoyable fixing all these problems. The only upside I see is I now know my printer inside out. If you buy the kit and your printer doesn't work, you can send it back to Prusa and they'll fix it. But you'll have to pay for repairs if you caused the problem. So they would have charged me for the incorrectly assembled pulley. But I have to say that's fair. Overall, the product feels a bit rushed. I assume they're feeling the competition from Bamboo Labs being the most prominent one. Let me give you my thoughts on why I bought my first Prusa printer. First, they're based in Prague, Czech Republic. They're basically my neighbors, much like Arduino. You can buy any part of your printer and fix it yourself. They open source not everything, but a lot, and I totally understand why they don't open source everything. They have great support, and I can confirm it. They have no cloud login, and the printer comes with Wi-Fi plus Ethernet. And yes, I love their style. Are you also using Prusa printers or something else? Why did you pick your printer? If this video was helpful, please like and subscribe. In addition to the power of Ethernet smart home sensor, I made a lot of Arduino focused videos, so if this sounds interesting, please check out my playlist. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.